everyone, I'm Sam.
And I'm Kaitlyn.
And this is Team Get Ovary It.
We're an all-female team participating in the greatest motoring adventure on the planet,
the Mongol Rally.
We'll be driving 10,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and unknown terrain.
And along the way, we hope to spread our feminist and environmental ideals.
Join us here as we share our stories, thoughts, and interviews as we get ready for the Mongol Rally 2021.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome back. Today we are particularly excited because we are joined by a very special guest. He is a true mountain man, hiker extraordinaire, and one of our dearest friends, John. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hello. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so in last week's episode, Kaitlyn and I shared some of our favorite hiking stories, but of course, there's a lot to the hiking universe that both of us have yet to experience, namely thru-hiking, and that's where John comes in. But before we get into all of that, John, would you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself and your experience with hiking?
Yeah, sure. I'm a thru hiker, which means that I've hiked a long trail from terminus to terminus. I started out hiking, I guess, when I was in college, and I joined a mountaineering club at the University of South Carolina. So I spent lots of my free time in the Appalachian Mountains, the Southern Appalachian Mountains near North Carolina, Georgia. Then I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2011, which took about 6 months, and then moved to South Korea, where I met you guys, and was heavily involved in the outdoor recreation groups, soul hiking group, climbing in Korea, and just doing my own thing. And then 2015, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. Also took about 5-6 months, and I've attempted 2 other thru hikes since then, but both of which are cut short due to injuries. And now I'm just living in South Korea, still hiking amid the pandemic, and hopefully I can do another one. I don't think I'll ever do another 6-month hike, but there's so many trails in America and all over just the world, and I'm always thinking about which one I'm going to do next, which one I want to do next. Yeah, that's kind of about me.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so I think you kind of already answered this question a little bit, but maybe not. So you said you joined when you were in college, right? Like the mountaineering clubs and stuff. But can you remember when your first hike was?
Yes. My first actual backpacking trip, overnight, was on the Foothills Trail. And the Foothills Trail is like an 80-mile trail that it starts in South Carolina, goes into North Carolina a little bit, and then comes back into South Carolina. I didn't, my first backpacking trip, I didn't do the whole thing, but it was just like an overnight trip on a section. And yeah, that I didn't realize that actual, carry a 30-40 pound backpack up and down mountains was so difficult.
Yeah.
I must have been like 20, 21 at the time, and I wasn't particularly in good shape. I just, wanted to do something new, and some of my friends had joined the hiking club. It was more of an outdoor club. We did hiking, rafting, kayaking, climbing. We did all kinds of stuff. But hiking just seemed like the most I don't need a particular skill set or talent to be able to do. And it's right, because hiking really is just walking, but I mean, it's very, very strenuous walking. It's very difficult walking.
Yeah.
If you've never camped anywhere that's far away from, I mean, I had done lots of camping before, but it's always been at a motor campground or something. Mm-hmm. There's bathrooms within a walking distance, or you can hook up your car to electricity. But this was I think the first time I'd ever walked for hours and hours into the forest and then camped somewhere where you have really just nothing but nature around you. And I remember finishing the next day and just being so happy to be out of the woods because of how much my body hurt. And I think it was one of those things where you go back home and then you can't stop thinking about it. It's that was really not really fun while it was happening, but then I just want to do it again.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that feeling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I just kept going back, and it kept getting easier and easier. And yeah, I mean, and it's like that, I think, for everybody, even if you're not doing overnight
Mm.
hiking. I think, I've met so many people here in Korea who, when they go on their first Korean mountain, they're just like, oh my God, um, I wasn't ready for this. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, the mountains here are very steep and rocky. And, sometimes some of the mountains here are just full body exercises.
Hmm.
But, as soon as they go on the second one and third one, they're like, this wasn't as bad as the last time. Like, yeah,
Mm,
it's getting easier.
yeah. It definitely does, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's like part of the draw of going back because each time it gets easier and more enjoyable, and you can like do more difficult trails and reach higher peaks.
Mm.
Yeah. There's like a ladder of ascension, you like,
Mm-hmm.
you can start on this one and then graduate to that one and then go to that one. And then finally you can do Sadoksan or Jirisan or something.
Yeah. And I think like in terms of too, like I know I'm a relatively like competitive person. Caitlin, I think like you are too. And that's like part like one of the things we loved about like hiking is like always trying to like do a higher peak, or I mean we hike fast, and
Yeah,
that's
I
like what we
remember.
enjoy,
Yeah.
but um definitely like there's an argument for not hiking fast, but like I think like comparatively, like compared to other sports where you can sort of have these like milestones or these aspirational goals, it's not a competitive atmosphere. It is in
Mm.
terms of like you're competing maybe against yourself,
Hmm.
or like against a time, or doing a certain number of trails, but the community of hikers, I think like in every country I've lived in so far, has been like relatively welcoming and supportive. Would you guys say
Mm.
the same thing?
Yeah, I think so because I think hiking it's you meet great people when you hike, and you meet, actually, I think, the best people. And I feel like that when I'm in Korea, where it's more of like a social atmosphere, or in America where it's more of like about the wilderness itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Mm.
think the people who are into that stuff are usually, to my opinion, the most down to earth. And I mean, there are people who make it like kind of like a competitive thing, but it's like you said, if it is, it's kind of like you're competing with yourself. And it's why I never really consider, it's always to me been more of a hobby and not a sport,
Mm.
because there's
Mm.
not really an element of competitiveness to it. It's more just about peace of mind, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just about, I think, finding some kind of inner peace, for me at least.
Mm.
Yeah, I think like what was it? Because I didn't really. Well, that's not true. I did a little hiking when I lived in Canada, but I lived on the East Coast and we don't really have mountains. And I went up like some hills, I think,
Hmm.
and it's just yeah, like every when I started, like I didn't have any stamina at all, and I would just be really tired and stuff. But there's something even if your body's hurting or even if you are suffering a lot, every time it gets easier, and then you're sort of drawn back again and again and again, and then whenever you do like I don't know, and it's just there's something really nice about hiking because yeah, you're in the wilderness, you're enjoying nature, but it's also for me when I go hiking too, it's like I'm very like grounded in my own body,
Right.
like
Exactly.
I feel my legs moving, I feel like, my feet hitting the rocks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes like you were saying some hikes in Korea are like full body exercises, so my
Hmm.
hand grabbing something, pulling my body up so I can like, continue on with the trail, and just feeling like all your muscles working in tandem like that is also just really it's really nice, and it's like a really good feeling just to be connected with your body.
Yeah.
And I think hiking does that like more than well, maybe well, I guess like the other sport I suppose would be like climbing, but for me, yeah, that's one of the things that I
Mm.
enjoy most about hiking, I think.
Yeah. I think I often sometimes, mostly when I'm like hiking by myself and not with like friends, it's
Mm.
kind of like a form of meditation. In
Mhm.
Mm.
that, yeah, you kind of really, in certain types of hikes, you really have to focus on like every little thing your body does so that you don't like slip and fall.
Yeah.
Especially like on descents, when it's just like every single place you put your foot is like another giant stone, and you kind of
Mm.
have to like be like two steps ahead of yourself, and kind of say, I'm going to put my foot here, and then my next foot there, and then my next foot there, and then I'm going to grab onto that tree, and you kind of see it all before it happens.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you really know how to do when you first start hiking, but it's something that
Mm.
you kind of develop over time, and then you can start doing it really fast, and then you kind of feel like, you can predict the future a little bit as you're walking. You're like, well, I knew I was going to do that. I might keep doing it. Whoa, seems fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And then when that one rock moves and you slip and you're just like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And then it kind of like makes your heart skip a beat, and you're like,
Caitlin, do you remember when I slipped down the mountain and ripped my pants that one hike?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Things
Yeah.
like that. You don't see them coming. You remember them later, though.
Yeah.
Um, well, okay, so you mentioned that the Appalachian Trail was your first sort of long through hike. What was, I guess, like what spurred you to decide to do a through hike? Like, what was, I guess, the motivation or the inspiration or like the moment where you're like, I want to commit to walking thousands of miles for the next 6 months?
I get asked this question a lot. And in my mountaineering club in college, we used to, some of the weekend trips we'd be on the Appalachian Trail. And when I was in college, I always heard the term Appalachian Trail, but I didn't really know what it meant. I just meant like it's a
Mm.
trail in the Appalachians. And so one of the trips we would always do in our club was Blood Mountain, which is if you're hiking north from the southern terminus, Blood Mountain would be like day 2 of the entire 6-month journey. It's like very much very close to the terminus. And we went up there on the peak, beautiful, beautiful view. And there's other hikers there because it's a fairly, popular mountain.
Mm.
And there was this guy up there who just like, he looked like he had been living in the woods his whole life. Like he was thin, super, super tan. Looks like, he smelled like a wild animal. He looked like he hadn't, showered in weeks. And he just, yeah, it looked like he had just always lived there. And, you know, and I was looking at him more, and I was just like, oh, he's actually kind of like not that much older than me, but he looks like he's, 50 or 60 years old. And
Hmm.
and I was like, I have to go talk to this guy, like, and see what his story is. And then he told me that he had walked there from Maine, and that,
Wow.
yeah, and that the next day he would be finished. And I was like, I didn't believe him, but like I was like, what? And so I was talking to like some of the other guys in our club, and like, oh yeah, he's hiking the Appalachian Trail. He's through hiking. So like for like after that moment, I kept thinking about that. I was like, is that even possible? Like, could I ever do something like that? Because like at that time, I was still very much a rookie hiker, and I was just like still struggling to do overnight hikes. And I was like, can I? Is it even possible for me to do that? Could I do that? Do I have to do some kind of special training? So I kept obsessing with this idea, knowing that all these other hikes out there, there's just one I could do that would take me like half of a year. So I got closer to graduation and didn't know what I was going to do, because this was like, not long after the recession back in like 2008.
Mm.
And like I didn't really have many prospects for like going out and finding a job right away. So I was like,
Mm.
I just kind of want to see if I can hike that trail. So that foothills trail I did that I was talking about earlier, it's about 80 miles. I decided I'm going to try to do that whole thing. And if I can make it all 80 miles, I could probably attempt at least the Appalachian Trail. So I did the foothills trail, and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful trail, lots of waterfalls. But I wasn't really prepared for like 7 days of hiking. Like,
Mm.
I brought way too much stuff. Most of my gear was like not light at all. It was like car camping gear. So I was carrying this humongous backpack in like an 80-liter backpack, and there was thunderstorms every single day.
Ooh.
So it was like mentally tearing me down that I was consistently having to watch out for lightning. And
Mhm.
but then like I made it out. It took me 7 days to do 80 miles, which is, you know, very slow, but
Mm.
it was my first like solo week-long trip. And I made it out. And I remember my roommate in college, he picked me up from the finishing point, and he was just blown away. Like he couldn't believe I did something like that. And we got back to like my apartment complex, which was like a college apartment complex, and like every single person that was like just walking around, like, this is my roommate. He just hiked 80 miles. He's a badass. And I was like, and I don't know. At that point, I was like, I guess I could hike the Appalachian Trail or at least try. So at some point, I think, yeah, I got a book about a guy who did it and I read it and I was just like, I have to do this. And so I planned for it. And, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. There's no mountains there. So when I told my family about it, they all looked at me like I was crazy. Like,
Mhm.
I think when I told my dad, he was just like, you're like, you took all this money from bartending and your graduation money and you're going to go dick off in the woods for 6 months. That's what you're going to do. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, that's what I'm going to do. He didn't think I could do it because he never been hiking before. We grew up on the beach, like,
Mhm.
and he thought it was just like some stupid thing. But alas, finally came the day, and like the first weekend of April, when I was like, Dad, I need you to drive me up to the starting point, Amicalola State Park, which is maybe like, I don't know, maybe like an hour north of Georgia, or it's in Georgia, an hour north of Atlanta or something like that. So we like made a weekend trip out of it, and me, him, my brothers. We stayed at the resort at the state park, and my family, we didn't get up to the mountains that much. So when they got up there, they were just like, "This is beautiful. This is amazing." And then
Mm.
starting in the beginning of April, a through hike is like one of the most popular weekends to start, especially on the AT, the Appalachian Trail. So there was a lot of other through hikers up there, and my dad was seeing these people, and a lot of them were like 20 years older than he is, and he was
Hmm.
like, "These people are gonna try to hike the whole AT." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." There was like, I think the year I did it, 2011, there was like an 88-year-old man doing it.
Oh, cool.
He was like trying to break the record for the oldest person to do it.
Oh.
I met him, I think, when I was in the Smokies. He was really, really nice guy. But yeah, me and my brother did the approach trail. So there's like an 8-mile approach trail to get to the actual Appalachian Trail.
Mhm.
So my brother and I did that on April 2nd, and my dad drove out to the trailhead to pick us up, and we did like one more night together in the resort hotel. And on April 3rd, my dad drove us back out there for me to actually start the actual AT. And he was quiet driving down, like he wasn't saying much. And when he actually got out of the car to say goodbye, he was crying, and because he thought I
Oh.
was going to die. he thought
Oh.
he thought he was never going to see
Aw.
me again, because he didn't understand the culture. He didn't understand that there was like a couple thousand other people doing it. He didn't understand that I was never really going to be alone out there.
Mhm.
And he didn't like, I'm not trying to say the Appalachian Trail is easy, but it's kind of like, it's very famous, it's very well marked, and it's I don't know. I never really felt like I was going to die. And when people think about going out in the woods, they think of like, the first thing they always think of is like bears. What about bears? And I'm like,
Mhm.
like, so few bear attacks actually happen. Like, I think we're conditioned to think that the wilderness is our enemy, and that there's
Mhm.
Mm.
so many things out there that could like kill us. And there are, don't there's definitely an element of danger to it, but I mean, it's not like it's out there to get us. It's not like it's waiting for us to like walk behind this like trail, and then like it jumps out from behind a tree to like catch us or something. It's like it's very much something that it's either just happen chance bad luck, or just has to be provoked or something. Like, it's
Yeah.
very,
Mm.
I've always felt much safer out there than I have walking around in downtown Charleston or something.
Mm.
um yeah, that's kind of how it all got started. But when I started, I didn't actually think I was going to finish, because it was like the chances of finishing a 6-month hike, it's like 20%. Like, it's like 1 out of 5 people actually make it all the way.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I was kind of more just me like, how far can I actually get? Because I never. It's just, when you think about it, it's like it's too much of a monumental thing to grasp. And when you
Mhm.
try to tell most people about it who aren't familiar with it, they're like, "Oh yeah, I hiked the AT." They're like, "Oh really? Like, how long did that take? A couple weeks?" I'm like, "It took about 6 months." I was like, "Oh, okay." And it doesn't really hit them, because they can't really comprehend what it's
Yeah.
like to hike all day every single day for half of a year, because they've probably never ever even thought about doing something like that.
Mm. Yeah. That's fair.
About 3 months in, I was, like, at the what they call the mental halfway point in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and I was very, very close to quitting because, like, let's be real, like, when you're hiking every single day, all day for half a year, you're not always gonna have good days. There's gonna be a lot of bad
Yeah.
days, and there's gonna be a lot of days where you're just like, "Why am I doing this? This is so dumb." Like,
Hmm.
and so I really was really close to quitting, and I actually, like, called up my family, and I called up, like, my friend in New York saying, like, "Hey, do you have a couch I could sleep on for a little while?" And it was, like,
Mm.
all set in motion, and I was just all I need to do is just get on the train tomorrow. And I was staying in a hostel, and I was looking through, like, all my pictures on my camera, and then there was, like, some magazines about the Appalachian Trail, and I was just reading through it, and then there was this other hiker who came in, and she was like, "Are you Poncho?" And I was like, Poncho is my trail name, and so,
Hmm.
and we on when there's trail logs all over the place, especially, like, in the shelters where some people sleep, you can always
Hmm.
sign your name in the trail log, leave a funny note or, like, a joke or just your thoughts of the day. And what's funny is you're always usually right behind somebody and you always see their name. And oftentimes you can go weeks or months without ever meeting that person, but just seeing their signature. And
Hmm.
so this girl, her trail name was Bandit, and she was like, "Are you Poncho by any chance?" And, I was like, "Yes, but how do you know that?" And then she's like, I've been seeing your name in the trail log for like the last 3 months, kept wondering if I was ever going to catch you. And now I finally caught you. And I was like, she was like really excited about it. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, but I'm going home tomorrow." And she's like, "Oh." I, for some reason that really like just feel it made me like
Mm.
think, and like I was like, I can't quit. I'm gonna give it at least one more week. And then in that week when I was hiking through like Maryland and going into Pennsylvania, I had met like another group of hikers, and like I made like this new group of trail buddies, and we hiked together like for weeks, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm just
Hmm.
really happy that I didn't quit, because fast forward 3 months later, and I actually did make it all the way to Maine, to everyone's surprise, including my own.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, it is hard to imagine. Like, Sam and I do a lot of hiking, and we do eventually. Well, like we're planning on doing the El Camino de Santiago.
Mm.
Oh
Hopefully,
yeah,
at
yeah.
some point in the future, we were supposed to do it like last year, but anyway, everyone knows what happened last year. So, um,
Hmm.
usual stuff. But 6 months, it's sort of like you were saying before, it's like unfathomable. Like you can't really wrap your head around like how long that would be.
And it's most people can't just take 6 months off of their life without having to
True.
sacrifice something huge. Like, you go on
Mm.
to that Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or the Continental Divide Trail.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of people, because there's a couple thousand people who try to do it, but the largest groups of people are 19-year-olds who just graduated high school and didn't go to college yet, or aren't going to college, and then 23-year-olds who just graduated college are in a gap year,
Hmm.
from whatever is going next, and then there's retired seniors.
Hmm.
You don't see many people in their 30s and 40s, and 50s out there, because it's a lot to have to give up. You meet a lot of guys out there who are like, their families are like, they're
Mhm.
taking, they're just like, they're concerned about, I'm just leaving my family out to hang. Um, my wife and kids are like, like,
Mm.
I had to quit my job and sell everything I own to do this. So yeah, it's 6 months is a long time, and I would love to hike the Continental Divide Trail and get my Triple Crown, because I attempted
Mm.
that in 2017 before I got injured. But it's like
Mm.
I'm also at a place right now where it's like I don't know if I ever want to take that much time to do a hike again. Um,
Mm.
when I think about doing another through hike, it's usually like a 1 or 2 month hike. Um, Something much smaller and less time consuming and less expensive. Because these things are, when you're not working for 6 months and you're spending money to every trail town you get to, it's like the costs add up pretty fast.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think before you said, because the costs and like just what you have to do to get ready is something that I've
Mm.
always been kind of, yeah, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Curious about, I guess.
Hmm.
So, that's our next question. Because you said before, when you said you hiked the foothills, that you brought like way too much stuff and it was too
Yeah.
heavy. So, like, what do you do to prepare for a big hike like the Appalachian Trail? What kind of things do you bring? What's your gear like?
Well, the best way to prepare is just to do a lot of hiking and kind of
Mhm.
you'll realize quickly what you need and what you don't need. Like when
Okay.
you're it's like I remember like when I finished the foothills trail, I was like unpacking my pack and found all these things that I didn't even like take out of my pack.
Mhm.
I was
Mm.
like, I didn't need this, didn't need this, didn't need this. And then it's funny when you're on the Appalachian Trail. If anyone's gonna do like get into through hiking as like their lifestyle or their hobby or something, the Appalachian Trail is usually the first one they do, and you can tell, like in the first like couple hundred miles that there's a lot of people out here who've just they've never even done any hiking, and they just probably
Oh.
Mm.
read about it in a book, probably like A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson or something, and they're just like, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna try to do this, and you meet people out there who are like hiking in army boots, wearing blue jeans and cotton hoodies, and they're like, "Yeah, hiking the Appalachian Trail," and I'm like, "Okay, not like that. You aren't gonna make it to Maine wearing blue jeans. I'll tell you that." And when you're on that approach trail that I told you about, it's kind of like the prelude to the AT. It's like you see so much stuff just abandoned on the side of the trail that people are just like. I saw like a Coleman stove one time. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, someone was like, I was just like, and they just leave it there because they're just
Well,
like, I
that's kind
can't.
of sad. I mean, like in
Yeah,
terms of
it's
like the environment.
you'll see like cans of beans. um, and it's funny because it's just like so much inexperience, like, and everyone's green, like nobody really knows what it's like to through hike because on the AT, like 9 out of 10 people you meet, this is their first attempt at a through hike.
Mm.
Mhm.
And then there'll be some other people who are like, this is my second time doing the AT because I loved it so much the first time. There was this guy I met named Flacco, and this was
Mhm.
his when I met him on the AT, it was his third time doing it.
Wow.
And we were like, why are you doing it again? He's like, I didn't like my summit photo.
Doing
And
it
then
for
like
the
he would
gram.
show us the photo, and it was a really bad photo. And I was like, yeah, I guess you just got to do the whole thing again. I think
Mhm.
now he's done it like 5 times now. Because
Wow.
I said we still keep up with each other on Facebook and stuff. And
Mm.
he actually
That's
hiked the PCT the same year I did, so I got to see him again. I think when I hiked the
oh.
PCT, there was like 4 or 5 people who hiked the AT the same year I did, and I like reunited with all of them at some point or another. And
Oh, cool.
it was really cool. Yeah, it was just funny how like I hadn't seen all these people in like 4 years. The one thing we have in common is like that we like to hike these long trails, and then we actually ended up in the same place, like much later in a much different part of the country. It was
Mm. I can imagine that would like really bond you with people. Like going
Mm.
through a through trail or having experienced that is something
Mhm.
it's like, even if like you didn't do it at the same time, I can imagine, and this is like speculation, so like correct me if I'm wrong, but like if you meet someone that said like, oh, I've done the AT or I've done the PCT, does it give you like sort of like an instant connection or something that you
Yeah,
could bond with them
totally.
about?
Yeah, I remember on one of the hikes in Korea in Seoul hiking group. It was I forget which hike it was. It was like some winter hike right
Mhm.
before one of the winter festivals. But I had one of my backpacks, so that I don't know if you remember, it was like the white one that was like
Mm-hmm.
made out of Cuban fiber. There's this other guy on the hike, and he was with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend just like tapped me on the shoulder, and she was like, "I just want you to know my boyfriend's been obsessing about your backpack like the entire time." And because like Cuban fiber backpacks, they're not really popular at all in Korea. Like
Yeah.
and so he I asked him if he was like familiar with the company, Mountain Laurel Designs, and he was just like he told we eventually got on the company. He hiked like 500 miles of the PCT. Um
Oh.
and so in Korea I hadn't really met many people at all who were familiar with through hiking, let alone who have hiked a section of it or any of it.
Mm.
So yeah, like right when I saw him I was like, "Hey man, let's just like talk forever about the PCT." So yeah, you do instantly feel a connection because it's a very unique experience to do something like that. And it's really funny because like when you're traveling, like backpacking around like Asia or like Latin America or just traveling, you meet all kinds of different people, but you always feel
Mhm.
like there's like this sense of like community, that we all get along really well and that we all have this something in common, that we're all like kind of like travel junkies. So it's really easy to make friends. When you're on a through hike, that it's like that, like tenfold. Like, and we all use trail names, so we don't even know each other's real names. It's just like we're all these crazy people out here trying to do this, and we all have this one really distinct goal in mind, and we all want to see each other exceed because we know that the odds are against us.
Mhm.
So it's
Mm.
like yeah, it is an incredibly like binding experience. Like both times I hiked in the AT and PCT, it completely like restores your faith in like people because you realize
Mm.
there are lots of actually good people out there, and they're all right here.
Mhm.
But to go back to your question about prepping,
Mhm.
um, yeah, by the time I finished the AT, I almost had completely different gear than when I started. Because I
Okay.
realized most of the gear I had was just not suited for an actual through hike. It was suited for long distance backpacking, but like right around in 2011 when I did it, like the ultralight I don't want to call it a movement or anything, but it was something that was very much becoming in style. It's like, hey, we're actually
Mm.
making all this gear that's not as durable as traditional backpacking gear, but it's much lighter. And so if you're trying to go longer distances, you can spend a little more money and get this lighter stuff. And I think when I got into Virginia, there at the Trail Days Festival, there was a couple outfitters in the town of Damascus, and I switched out my backpack, I switched out my sleeping bag, I got new boots. I switched from like these thick steel toe leather boots to like trail runners, even though
Mm.
I didn't do any trail running. They're just much lighter shoes. And yeah, as I kept going and going, I kind of realized what I liked, what I didn't like,
Mhm.
and it kind of turned me into like a gear nerd where I was always just like looking up like what kind of new stuff is out on the market and what's cool, what's not cool, like, because it's something that like hikers always talk about. It's like, hey,
Mhm.
how you liking that sleeping bag? Like how you liking that sleeping quilt? How you like is that backpack good? Is it like, does it feel good? So it's something fun to kind of nerd out about, is just like the
Mhm.
gear. In terms of like physical shape, it definitely like I would recommend to anybody to like definitely get yourself into shape before you try, because it'll just
Mhm.
make those first few weeks that much better if you're just not in terrible shape. But
Yeah.
as I would say to anybody, nothing is going to get you fully ready. Nothing's going to get you in hiking shape except for hiking, because hiking is a very
Yeah.
distinct set of muscles that you're working. And running or working out, you're not going to just get everything in shape together. So to get prepared for a through hike, I would just say do lots of hiking, and do lots of hiking with a full backpack. Like because
Mm.
doing a day hike with like a 6 or 7 pound backpack compared to doing a through hike with like a 30 plus pound backpack, it's not the same thing. It's similar, but you feel that extra weight and you're gonna be a lot more sore by the end of the day. Like especially
Mhm.
your hips and your shoulders and your feet. Like just when I attempted the CDT southbound in 2017, I started in Glacier National Park.
Mhm.
And when you're doing a southbound hike, your time window is much more narrow. So you have to kind of hit the ground running.
Mhm.
Mm.
So and when you're starting in Glacier National Park, going southbound on the CDT, you don't have many spots to like resupply. So you're having to carry a lot more food. And
Okay.
so I had to like start in Glacier. My next town stop was like 7 days away, which is a lot because every day of food is about a kilogram. It's about like 2 pounds. So you're carrying like 14 pounds of food and your water and your all your regular gear. And yeah, it was just like we had to do like 20-mile days right off the start. and these, and Glacier National Park is really rugged. It's not an easy 20 miles a day,
Mm.
and you're doing it like right as the snow is thawing, so you're going through snow and you're post holing. It was really tough, and I actually had to quit because I pushed myself too hard and injured my hip.
Mm.
Because I went from like 7-day food carry to 7-day food carry, and just trying to you know, it would only work if I was doing 20 miles a day. Otherwise, I would have to
Yeah.
carry even more food, and it's just like
Mm.
I wasn't ready for that. Even though I had done so
It's
much
a lot of
hiking in
stress to put
Korea,
on your body.
it's so much stress. Yeah, it's really difficult. And I wish I had taken it a little slower, or maybe just carried a little less food.
Hmm.
Like, but
I wish I had just like not eaten.
another thing is I tried something different with the CDT, and I tried, on the PCT, I went ultralight. I had my base
Yeah.
weight was less than 10 pounds, which
Wow.
was when, yeah, so like that's kind of like the goal as an ultralight hiker is I want my base weight to be less than 10. And I did that.
Mm.
And but the thing you're sacrificing is comfort. When
Yeah.
you're carrying a lot less stuff, you're going to have not as much comfort, especially when you're sleeping. You're going to
Okay.
have a very bare bones tent set up with just like a tarp or something, and you're probably not going to have a very thick sleeping bag. I had a sleeping quilt, which is actually meant more for hammock camping.
Mm.
So it didn't keep me very warm because I was sleeping on the ground. So I went through the entire PCT, and I just kind of, my backpack was like an ultralight Cuban fiber pack, and it was in tatters, and one of the straps was hanging on by just a couple threads by the time I finished.
Oh
So
my God.
so yeah, I was like, all right, for the CDT, I want a little more durability because this is a much tougher, less forgiving trail.
Mhm.
But also, it made my pack load a lot heavier. I think my base weight was around 12 or 13 pounds, which 2 pounds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're going up and
Yeah.
down humongous mountains every single day, you feel every ounce. So when I attempted the Arizona Trail, like in 2019, I went back to ultralight, and I went like ultralight. My base weight was like 8 pounds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about, I guess, the three, I don't know if they're considered the three major US through hikes. I guess in my head, I consider them the major ones, but like the Continental Divide, the Appalachian, the Pacific Crest Trail. Would you say those are like the three major US ones? Because you talked about like you want to go back to do the Continental Divide for the Triple Crown. Is that what it's called?
Triple Crown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So those are the three
Okay.
main ones. I think they were the three first ones, maybe. But yeah, they're called the Triple Crown. The Appalachian Trail, yeah, it goes from Georgia to Maine,
Mhm.
and that was the first one. And then there's the Pacific Crest Trail, which is Mexico to Canada, which goes through the Pacific
Hmm.
Crest, California, Oregon, Washington. And then there's the Continental Divide Trail, which is also Mexico to Canada. It's New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana.
Mm.
And it's funny because that one is like that's the bad one. Like that people will go and have the time of their lives on the AT and the PCT, but then they're like, "Oh, you've done 2 out of 3. You have to do the CDT now." And everyone's like, "Yeah, man, whatever. I love through hiking." And then when you look at a hiker after they finish the CDT, they're like, "Yeah, I didn't really enjoy that."
Huh.
Lots of people hike the AT and the PCT multiple times. Everyone hikes the CDT once. Yeah, and I really think a lot of it's just because it's really just going through a section of the country that's just really in the middle of nowhere. There's no
Okay.
resources, and half of the trail is through grizzly country.
Mm.
Um,
Oh.
I was only on the CDT for like 3 weeks, and I did encounter a grizzly. Like I didn't just see one in the distance; like it
Oh
came
my
up into my
gosh.
campsite and was like screwing around. Um, and I was like, That's not gonna. I'm not gonna see a grizzly." And I did. On day 5, I saw a grizzly. Like, uh,
That's when I would have just like walked away. I would have been like, you know what?
Hmm.
You can have the tent. You can have everything here, the food. You know what? It's all yours, Grizzly. It's yours.
yeah, that's exactly what you think. You're just like, yeah, just please take what you want and leave me alone. Um,
um, well, that sort of gets into the next question I wanted to ask because I think I've talked to you about it,
Mhm.
but like, how would you rank those three trails in terms of difficulty?
they're all difficult in their own way. I think
Okay.
the CDT, the Continental Divide Trail, is considered all around the most difficult. And it, I was
Mm.
only on it for 3 weeks, but man, I like broke down and cried one day on the trail. I remember because I was just so hard, so much harder than the AT and the PCT. It was like I was in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is like the section after Glacier National Park, and Montana, like they have. I think there's some kind of law in Montana about like maintaining wilderness areas. Like it's like they very much look at it like this is wilderness and we don't touch it. And I
Okay.
went through like a burn area, and
Okay.
there was so many blowdowns, and I spent like and it was like it was in the middle of July. It was like
Mm.
90 degrees outside, and I was spending like all day just climbing up and down over these like blown down, burnt down trees. Since you're in a burn area, there's no shade because there's just and I was
Mhm.
like dehydrated, and I was like there was relentless like mosquitoes and black flies, and like the other thing about the CDT is like if like 2 or 3 thousand people attempt the AT or PCT every year, maybe like 300 attempt the CDT.
Oh, wow.
So I hiked it
Mm.
with a friend, um, Mac, who I met on the PCT. Very helpful, useful guy. He's very good with tech and like maps and planning out water refills and but we oftentimes we would hike apart because we were hiking at different speeds. You would just go like all day and not see anybody. I think
Wow.
like we were on that Bob Marshall section. I think on like the fourth or fifth day, we actually saw some other people hiking the opposite way, and we were like so happy. We were like puppies when like their owner comes home. Like, oh my god, people, people, people. We like wanted to talk and ask about. They just kept walking, like they weren't in the mood to talk, and we
Oh,
were just kind of like standing there, like befuddled, like what? Like they don't want to talk to us.
Mm. I can imagine that would be mentally more difficult than the other trails.
I started keeping like video diaries, like just holding my camera out and like holding my phone out and like talking to it.
mm.
um, and yeah, it's just kind of like what you do. You talk out loud, or like you think
Yeah.
out loud while you're talking and stuff like that. It's really weird. And that was only just like 3 weeks in. Like I know people, people who've done the whole thing. They say by the time they're like on their last month, you're kind of going crazy a little bit. Um,
Mm.
Mhm. How long would it take to do the whole thing?
the CDT,
Yeah.
well, it's a lot longer than the PCT and AT, but because the time window is so narrow, you're usually doing much bigger days.
Uh-huh.
God, I heard some people when they're going through like the Great Divide Basin in Wyoming, they're doing like 50-mile days because it's completely flat, first of all, and
Mhm.
it's so hot and there's no water. So you just have to do really big days to get through it as fast as you can. Because if you're in the Great Divide Basin and like a thunderstorm comes over, you're screwed because it's just
Mm.
flat fields that go on forever. But you're trying to get through as fast as you can because you want to get into the San Juans in Colorado before the snow comes.
Mm.
And that's the thing on a southbound hike, and why most people choose to go northbound is just your time window is much smaller, and you're trying to
Mhm.
just like you know if there's a big snow dump and like you get a huge snowpack in the mountains, like you're gonna have to skip it, and you don't want to, the big mountains like the San Juans in Colorado
Mhm.
or the Cascades in Washington on the PCT. Like those are some of the most beautiful parts. Like and that's like
Mm.
why you're there. Like
Mhm.
I want to see this stuff, and to have to skip it because it's not passable. It's discouraging. And at that point, you're just kind of like,
Mm.
Yeah.
why did I come out here if I can't even like see the good stuff? Yeah, that was like always
Mm.
one of my big anxieties, like on the PCT was like, I want to see the good stuff. So like, I don't
Yeah.
want to like be coming through here on a cloudy day where it's all sucked in the clouds. So I was like
Mm.
sitting in my tent saying prayers, like, just throw whatever weather you want at me at Washington. Just please let me have good weather on the Goat Rocks. Just please let me have good weather and Crater Lake. Like I just want to see this stuff. I want to get the pictures, the memories.
Well, especially because it's sort of like it's a very I mean, not for everyone, but for some people, like a once in a lifetime thing to like be
Yeah.
hiking this trail. And so you don't want to like come all this way and then you get to the top and it's like you can't see anything. It's like, well, that was anticlimactic.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that it happens too. But like lately, my mentality is like whatever weather I get, it's just what I get.
Mhm.
Because
Mm.
there's something like even beautiful about that. Even like a rainy, cloudy day, it's like there's something special about that. Even if you're in a place. I mean, for me, when I've gone hiking, I've been hiking in Soraksan like 15 times. Most of the time when I'm
Mm.
there, it's cloudy and I don't see anything. So I've kind of just learned to accept that this is pretty
Mhm.
in its own way, even though if the Dinosaur Ridge Trail is incredibly difficult. I try to tell people like you don't need to do Dinosaur Ridge unless you're gonna have good weather, but everyone
Yeah.
wants to do it anyway. I'm like,
Well, with
so
Dinosaur
be it.
Ridge, like, it's one of those things like we were talking about earlier. It's like you do it once and you're like, okay, I never have to do it again. And I remember we said that the first time that we hiked Dinosaur Ridge. Sam, were you there?
Yeah, but it was my second time.
Oh, your
I had
second
already
time.
decided I was gonna keep going back to it.
Yeah, I think the first time because like it was like me and Mo and what's his name and Martin all together, and then we
Yeah,
were
there was,
like,
like, a group of us, and it was the fall colors. It was beautiful.
I mean, it was very beautiful, but like we get down from that like grueling descent, and our knees hurt, and everything is sore, and we're
Your
tired, and
body just, like, is
yeah,
screaming at you, like, "What did you just do?"
and it's like we'll never have to do this again. But then I did it like 4 more times, so
Yeah, I think it's
yeah,
seen as kind of like the pinnacle of like difficult trails in Korea, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
Dinosaur Ridge, it's like there's nothing much more difficult than doing Daechangbong and then Dinosaur Ridge right after. Like it's
hmm
if you want a big challenge, that's it. And once you've done it, and then you start doing other trails, you're like, yeah, this is fun, but it's not Dino Ridge. You start saying that to everyone, and everyone starts getting annoyed with you, like, okay, we get it, you did Dino Ridge.
And it's like next time I can do it faster, or
Yeah,
like
I
Well,
can
and
do.
I feel
yeah,
like there's something really gratifying about coming off Dinosaur Ridge
yeah.
and having people say, "Oh, like, you did Dinosaur
Yeah,
Ridge, that's so cool." It's like, "Yeah, I did."
all the
Like
people that took the valley or did the cable car, you like come down to like the restaurant, and you feel like you feel like a hero, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, especially when you dude, like, especially when you come down because, like, we were saying before, like, we like to hike fast and, like, when you get down and it's, like, noon, it's lunchtime, they're like, "You're finished?" "Yeah."
Yeah, I
"Did
remember
you
that.
did the ridge?" "Yeah."
Yeah, I remember
It's
one
so
time.
awesome.
I remember one time I went with you guys, and you guys just like right from the beginning at Daechangbang, you guys just like powered through. I was like,
Yeah, well,
see ya.
that was the time when we were trying to set a time record for ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and I think
remember.
we did a
Um,
really good job.
yeah,
I forget
but I
who I
remember
was with when I did that. Yeah.
the first time I hiked it was with you, John, and Anne, and I think
Mm,
Mo,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
was it Rachel?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
there
yeah.
was a typhoon coming in, and so we had to go fast for weather reasons, and we just like booked it through.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then I became addicted to the idea of fast hiking
I tell this
after
story.
fast.
that.
I tell this story a lot to people because I use this as my prime example of you shouldn't do Dinosaur Ridge unless the weather's nice because it's just going to be suffering otherwise. And there was like,
Mhm.
yeah,
And it was.
it
I
was
mean, like, it was
Rachel and a couple
borderline
other people.
miserable.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
guys had already powered ahead. And, at this point, I'd already done Dinosaur Ridge like 7 or 8 times. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm leading for Warren. And I'm just like, I have to
Mm,
somehow talk these people out of doing Dinosaur Ridge because I don't want to do it right now in this weather. And I knew these people like from how they were hiking before. They were really slow, taking lots of breaks. And I was worried I
mm,
didn't have enough food to get through, like, without being miserable.
yeah.
So, yeah, Mo was there, Rachel was there, and a couple other people that, I never saw again after this day. And, you know that moment in Lord of the Rings where, like, they're trying to figure out which way to go, and Gimli's like, "We could go through the mines of Moria," and Gandalf's like, "I wouldn't take that way unless I had no other choice." And then Frodo's like, "We'll go through the mines," and Gandalf's like, "So be it." That's exactly what I said when they said they wanted to do Dinosaur Ridge. I was like, "We should really not do Dinosaur Ridge right now because it's raining, it's going to be slippery, it's mostly rocks, and you guys are going
Mm.
slow. I just think it would be a lot more nice if we went through the valley where we could go slower and enjoy it." And they're like, "No, we want to do Dinosaur Ridge." I was like, "So be it." And of course, they were miserable. They were miserable, and they wanted to turn back. And I
Yeah.
was like, at this point, if you turned back, you would just make it even longer because the valley, is just as
Yeah.
long. So we have to go through it
Once
anyhow.
you commit to Dinosaur Ridge, you really just have to
Yeah,
commit.
yeah,
There's no
Yeah.
going back.
yep. And they were really slow. And I remember Mo was just like she powered through it. Like she was suffering like the rest, but she was like she was keeping up with me, and she was keeping her pain to herself. But yeah, I was
Mm.
like, I was when I was like, yeah, Mo's a real hiker for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mo's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that feeling when you finish Dinosaur Ridge is it's powerful. And like yeah, when I finished the AT and the PCT too, I was just kind of like this feeling of now what? You
Mm.
don't really know what's gonna come next, but it's just like this for 6 months, it's just like this is like that one day you've been thinking about for like so long. It's like
Yeah.
I've been visualizing it. I've been looking at pictures of it and then it happens and you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do now. Should I just turn around and go back the other way? Like, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
what was that moment like? Like, was there sort of, because I mean, there's a lot of buildup. It's six
yeah.
months of buildup to this finishing moment.
You
Was
always
it as
anticipate it.
satisfying as you imagined, or was there like a letdown? Was it, I don't know.
I
What
think
was it like?
it's kind of like I'm looking at my Harry Potter books right now. I'm thinking it's kind of like when you finish a year at Hogwarts or something. It's like how when Harry like finishes a year at Hogwarts and then like he has to go back to the Dursleys. It's kind of like
Yeah.
that. You're just like,
Oh no.
you kind of realize that even though this is a tremendously difficult thing and my body's in pain 24/7, it's just like I don't want to leave this. Like, why am I? It's kind of tough. There's a really power like a really real thing. You can read a lot about it in like any outdoor magazine. They call it like post trail depression. Something
Mm.
about how you're getting this rigorous exercise every day for like 6 months, and then one day it just stops, and your brain's just kind of like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I need my dopamine.
Mm.
Like, so you kind of sink into this really heavy depression for a while because you just like don't really have like a goal,
Mm.
and you don't
Yeah.
really like you're not exercising as much as you used to. Your body still has this ravenous appetite from habit, but you're not like
Mm.
burning thousands of calories every day like you used to. So I remember when I first got off the AT, I was still eating like a wild animal, and
Yeah.
my dad was like having to like you know take the food away from me or like scold me or something. He was just like, you need to control yourself. We have guests.
Yeah, I can understand the hunger. I did that. That happened to me after I did tree planting. Because like
Hmm.
similarly, I guess like you're lugging around like 50 pounds of trees on your body all day, and like you're just constantly like digging little holes and then planting a tree and walking
Yeah, your
around.
body's just like
Yeah.
you're starving your body a bit, and like when you're through hiking, you're never gonna be able to consume as many calories as you're burning.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you're just always gonna be hungry. You're always gonna be losing weight. So you're like just having to like literally just consume like inhale food in order to like kind of keep up. And it hits people differently. I lost scary amounts of weight on both trails, and
Hmm.
people were like legit worried about me.
Hmm.
And God, yeah, I think after I finished the AT, I weighed like 120 pounds.
Wow.
Um, the PCT is similar, but I was also a lot heavier when I started the PCT. Yeah, you kind of like burn off all your fat right away, and then you have just
Mm.
like this set muscle for a few months, and then after a while, I think your muscles just kind of give up, and you start burning your muscles too, and that's when you start developing the wild animal smell, because when you burn muscles, it's like it creates like an ammonia smell, and
Oh,
you actually
really?
smell like yeah, you start actually smelling like piss, like
Whoa.
and people that's when people really just can't stand to be around you, and like I
Wow.
remember on the A-team, my mom came up for my finish, and she was shuttling around hikers from the park back to the town. And she said she like just she was like I was like offended by the smell. Like I couldn't do it after a while, like because she was like it wasn't just like smelling like you skipped a shower for a couple days. It was really just like grotesque. And I had to like tell people that too, but like and people are like, "Don't worry, I can handle it," but they're not ready for it. Like I went when I finished the PCT, I took a bus into Vancouver,
Oh. Oh no.
and this point I'd already showered a few times, and laundered my clothes a couple
Yeah.
times, but the smell doesn't just come off you right away. And like I met a couple friends who I knew from Korea who were living in Vancouver,
Hmm.
and they didn't want to hang out with us. It was weird, like, and I could tell that they were like disturbed by it. I don't know if it was just because of might have also been because of the way I looked, because I had this ragged beard and hair that
Mm.
needed a haircut really badly. But yeah, they were just like we hung out. They took us to dinner. Like they got us a couple beers, and they were like, they were like, yeah, we should like hang out again tomorrow. I was like, yeah, for sure. And they never called. And I was like with the person I was with, and I was like, it has to be because of our appearance or how we smell, right? They're like, probably. And I remember, yeah, it's the same thing. My dad was much more upfront about it. When I was on the AT, I met up with my dad in Massachusetts. He came up. He has an office in Boston, and he drove into like the middle of the state to pick me up off the trail. And he was like, more direct about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, we had to ride all the way back to Boston with the windows down, and he was just telling me like, you smell awful, like really awful.
Oh my God.
He's like, I never even smelled anything like this before. Like, I don't even know what it is.
It's
Yeah.
that's so interesting. It's almost like this. I don't know. I had never heard that before about like the smell of like muscles, I guess, deteriorating. It's like
Breaking
slightly
down. Yeah. It's like,
alarming.
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
not healthy. It's a really
Yeah.
unhealthy thing. It's really bad. And like, I don't have any like proper photos to show it off or anything, but people were telling me like, you look like you're dying.
Whoa. You
Like you look like
smell like
someone
you're
who's
dying too, I
dying.
guess.
Yeah, I have one photo on the PCT where I'm like hunched over, like really like tired, and you can see my thigh
Mm.
is really, really thin.
Hmm.
And every time I see that photo, I get like freaked out a little bit. Yeah, it's different for everyone, but for a lot of people, it's like it's that like fourth or fifth month, like right, like when you're like 1 month before done, it's like your body just kind of gives up. And I think what it is that what something the AT and the PCT have in common is like if you're going on a northbound, the last like 30 days are really difficult terrain wise. Like,
Mm.
Okay.
and when you're going north, when you hit Maine, when you hit New Hampshire and Maine, you have like the whites. You have the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and then you have Maine, which is they're beautiful, but they're like some of the biggest mountains you have, and they're at the end. So it's like on the AT, I split the AT into 4 sections. The first section is I call it the honeymoon phase, because you're like, this is all brand new and wonderful, and
Mm.
you're going through like the Southern Appalachians, which are beautiful. You're going through like Great Smoky National Park, um, and you get to Trail Days Festival, and then phase 2 is Virginia, and that is like Virginia is 6 weeks long. It's the longest state you have on the AT. There's 14 states on the AT, and Virginia takes 6 weeks, and you're just kind of like you get what's called the Virginia Blues. The Trail Days is over, the festival's over, and you realize I still have like 5 months of hiking, and it kind of the reality sets in that I'm not even close to being finished, and
Hmm.
I'm already like kind of over this whole walking in the woods every day thing. A lot of people drop out in Virginia, and when you're in Virginia, it's like late spring, so it's like raining a lot, and you're definitely starting to like question yourself.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like where I started like questioning, like right when I finished Virginia and I got into West Virginia, that's when I almost quit. The Mid Atlantic is the section 3 or phase 3, I call it. And Mid Atlantic has like definitely the most boring section of trail. It's flat. You're entering towns almost every single day because you're going through like the most populated part of the country when you're in like New Jersey and New York. That's like where you need like a group of friends to like make it
Mm.
fun. Like,
Mm.
you hit up the towns every day. You do what we call the deli tour, and there's like always delis where you can like get like an awesome sandwich. And like, God, we went to like a water park, and we went to the movies. We saw like Harry Potter. We watched like the Women's World Cup. It was a great time to just like be social and be with friends. We got to like this really dinky hotel in Pennsylvania and had a hiker prom where we just like dug out clothes from like a hiker box and just wore these trashy outfits and like did bar hopping around this tiny little mountain town.
Awesome.
Yours truly was named prom king.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Yeah, just because of my drunken dancing moves. But what else? Yeah, phase 3. But like the mountains are so small, you're only ascending like you basically ascend maybe 200 or 300 feet up a hill and then just ridge walk the whole day and come back down.
Mm.
That's like all of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. and a lot of Massachusetts. And then phase 4 is New England. You get into Massachusetts and you have Mount Greylock, which is like the biggest mountain you had since Virginia. And you're just like, whoa, this is big. And then you have the Green Mountains in Vermont and the White Mountains, New Hampshire. And then all of Maine is just like intense again. And I think your body just kind of isn't ready for that. And your body's just like, okay, I give up. And then it starts just breaking down the muscle and you just get really thin and you're just going so slow. And to add insult to injury, timeline wise, by the time you get to Vermont, that's when the southbounders, you guys start crossing paths because the southbounders start a lot later. They start in the middle of summer.
Okay.
So they're all starting in Maine. And by the time they get to Vermont, you're in Vermont too. And yeah, you want to talk about like just kind of like, just awkward moments. Like southbounders are like in their second month and they're like, I'm having so much fun. I'm hitting my stride. And all the northbounders are like, just kind of like, I just want this to be over. I remember one day in Vermont, I was like having a really bad day and like one of my hiking poles broke and I was like limping or something. And 4 months in, I looked like that guy from Blood Mountain. I had like this crazy beard, tan lines. I smelled bad. And this southbounder was like walking, all smiles, sunglasses, like, and I was like, he saw me, and I just like, I was obviously frowning, limping, and he just like he walked past me, and then like really snidely like called back, "Get off the trail if you hate it, bro." And I was like, "What? What? What? I've been out here
Whoa.
4 months. I've been through hell and back several times, and dude, you haven't done anything. You've been out here like a month."
I'd be curious to see where he was 3 months later, like in terms of like his own mental
Yeah.
state.
Yeah, seriously, like, and southbounders have a much lower success rate. Like they're much less likely to finish than northbounders are. Because
Interesting.
so yeah, the south like crossing paths with the southbounders is always weird. It was the same thing on the PCT. I didn't have anybody make quite as heinous of a comment, but like, yeah, I remember being like in Oregon or something when I was crossing the southbounders on the PCT, and they're all talking about, I think I'm gonna try to do 30 miles today. I'm gonna do like this, and I'm just sitting there like, I just want to get to town so I can eat a burger.
Yeah, really though. Oh man. Okay. So riveting stories. Everything sounds really cool. So if anybody who's listening, I guess, to this podcast now decides that they want to become a through hiker, which hike would you recommend for like a first through hike?
Well, I know a lot more about through hiking than I did when I first started. I would say like the thing that would make most sense is just work your way up to a through hike. So you can be like just mentally and physically prepared. Lots of people I know just like I was telling you about the people who show up in blue jeans and like army boots that just like
Yeah.
they've never even done any hiking before. And it's so very possible to keep doing that because you're going to learn while you're on the trail. I'm just saying like you're less likely to quit if you're enjoying it from the very beginning, even if you're still like kind of in pain and you're getting blisters. And I had a lot of hiking experience from my hiking club, so I knew kind of what I was getting myself into. And I did that week-long hike on the foothills, so I knew what it was like to just wake up every day and start hiking again. But I think a lot of people just aren't prepared for the physical brutality of it. They're not prepared for the elements, like on like the third day of the AT, we woke up and the ground was covered in snow. Nobody was ready for that. Everyone was immediately like calling up hotels in the area, like, I gotta find a way to get out of here. And like, you just gotta be ready for whatever. And you can tell yourself that you're ready for anything. Like, I'm up for it. It's so much easier to think that sitting on your couch reading a book than it is to actually be out there and to be like freezing cold and realize I'm not going to be warm again for days. Like, so I would say find a couple hikes that are maybe, not too far out of your way that if you can survive a week on a trail without going into town, you can physically do the AT. I can't speak much for the mentality because you're not going to know how you handle that mentality. Like a through hike really is like 80% mental, 20% physical. And you feel the physical element so hard because that's, just it's your body. It hurts. But like mentally, it's like you're going to be out there and you're just going to be like, what am I going to think about all day while I'm walking all day. Like when I did the AT, I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't have like an iPod or anything. So it was just stuck with my mind all day. And I was literally just, my music was the song that I would hear in the grocery store before I got back on the trail. If I went and resupplied my food
Mm.
at a supermarket and they were playing, everybody was kung fu fighting, that would be my song for the next 6 days. Just in my head. That's the only thing I would be singing. And on the PCT, I had a smartphone and I had a little bit of music. I had podcasts, so that helped. I had audiobooks. A lot of people were like, "No, man, you just gotta like be out and you gotta immerse yourself in the nature, and that's all that matters." And I'm like, "Yeah, you try doing it for 6 months and tell me how you feel." Like it's so much. You need something to occupy your mind, otherwise
Yeah.
you're gonna start having those feelings of like, what am I missing out on back at home? Like, do I really want to be out here for 6 months? 3 months is maybe enough. Like, and then you're gonna quit and you're gonna regret it. So I would say find a trail that's like maybe 7 days, and even if you could hike it faster than 7 days, try to just spend 7 days out there and just to see how you feel at the end of those 7 days, and more importantly, how you feel like a week after you're finished. Do
Hmm.
you miss it? Can you not stop thinking about it? Can you not stop telling people about it? And if that excitement continues to live inside you, then yeah, you should do a through hike, because it's like, think about those months you could spend backpacking around Southeast Asia or New
Hmm.
Zealand or, Latin America or Europe. Like, try thinking about like if you're really into the wilderness and you're really into nature and you really just want to meet like the best people ever, like through hiking's it. Having said all that, the community is going through changes right now with the pandemic. Like through hiking was
Mm.
just straight up banned last year. Like
Oh, wow.
the ATC Conservancy and the Pacific Crest Trail Association were both like, we're not issuing permits. So if we see you out on the trail, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble.
Oh, wow.
As far as I know right now, the PCT has issued permits for 2021, but they're like really going heavy on like what you need to do in order to not, screw this up for everybody.
Hmm.
They're saying
Mm.
get bigger backpacks, get yourself in shape for longer food carries, because we don't want you to,
Oh, like,
it's like it's not so much like the people, it's the trail towns, like these
yeah.
small little
Yeah.
mountain towns. Like if you walk into town and you're spreading around a virus, these mountain towns, they don't really have big hospitals for people to
Hmm.
go to, like you could like really cause a lot of damage if you're like being careless. It's like these trail communities that do so much for the hikers, and it's like, so for as of now, they're planning to go ahead, but through hiking season starts next month, March, and the way things are right
Mhm.
now, I don't think that it would be safe for people to start. So if you're planning to do a through hike, I would wait until at least 2022.
Mm.
If you want to,
Mm.
just kind of have some sense of normalcy. I have no idea what it will actually be like next year, but I definitely have a few hikes in mind that I would like to do. There's actually, 12 national scenic trails in the United States.
Wow.
The ATPCT and the CDT are what make up the Triple Crown, and they're definitely probably like the most well known, I guess. But
Mhm.
there's lots of other
Mhm.
ones that I think once people do their Triple Crown and they're still thirsty for more trails to through hike, there's the Florida Trail, which goes across all of Florida.
Hmm.
There's the
Hmm.
Arizona Trail, which I tried to do 2 years ago, which I've heard is unbelievable. And I was only on it for 2 weeks before, the stress fractures on my foot kept me from walking anymore. But it was unreal, and I would love to go back and do that trail sometime.
Hmm.
There's the Pacific Northwest Trail, which actually starts at the northern terminus of the CDT and goes all the way to the west coast.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Oh, cool.
and I've heard that one's really hard, but it's really pretty. There's lots. There's so many. I can't even think of all of them. But there's just so many other trails that aren't national scenic trails that would be
Mm.
great. There's the Great Northwest Trail, which I think is the longest one. It's like 4,000 miles, but it's like
How
it's
long
Whoa.
going
would
through
that
areas like,
take?
I don't know. I don't think you could do it all in a season. And it goes. It's like it's not the Great Northwest Trail. I can't remember what it's actually called, but it goes through like New York, Ohio, Michigan, that area.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
it's, from what I've seen, it's not super scenic. It's kind of just very much woods walking, but it is, I think, technically the longest one.
Mm.
I don't know if it's 100% finished yet either. I follow the Facebook page, and it's always just about people building trails and stuff.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been like a really fun conversation. I hope the people listening enjoyed it as much as we did. If anyone is listening and they want to follow you or keep up to date with your hiking and what you're up to, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Let's see. I have a blog. It's not very active, but I did recently post something about like my 10 favorite hikes in Korea. It's called ponchowalks.wordpress.com. PON, not PAN, PONCHO, ponchowalks.com. That if you want to read about like I have a full day-to-day diary of my PCT hike. And I have a day-to-day diary of my 3 weeks on the CDT and my 2 weeks on the Arizona Trail. But like, if you want to just like, I'm on Instagram. I don't remember what my handle is right now.
We'll link it in the description.
Yeah, but I have lots of photos from pretty much all my photos on there from hiking.
Beautiful photos.
Retrospective photos from my hikes in America, or lots of Korea hiking photos too. Also really into cycling too. I'm trying to do more and more cycling as an alternative to hiking, because I've had several injuries now, and I would be lying if I said every injury has slowed me down a little bit more and more. First the hip and then the foot, and I'm sure there's something else awaiting. So cycling is a lot more forgiving on my body. So I think, and I know just from following so many of my thru-hiking friends, that's kind of like what they do next once they're like a little, once they've like done their Triple Crown, and once they've hiked all around. Cycling, long distance cycling is just bike touring. It's just really, to me, just as much fun.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm into cycling too, because these days I would love to do more long hikes and stuff, but it just it kills my knees.
In Korea, when you're living in Korea, like there's not that many long hikes you can do. There's the one there's the one trail that goes like from Jirisan to Seoksan, but that's it. And the only other things you can do are like overnight hikes in Jirisan or Seoksan, which you can't do right now because of the pandemic. That's what I got into, like long distance cycling here in Korea, because Korea is like one of the best places for that. There's so many bike trails that you can go through.
Oh yeah, really cool. So I guess thank you very much, John, for coming on today and talking to us and telling us all your tidbits of wisdom and stories. They're really. Honestly, I feel inspired now. I want to go hiking.
I love talking about it. Like, and you invited me on here. I was like, yeah, I'd love to just talk about thru-hiking, because there's not really that many people around anymore who will listen. I'm still doing Warren's hikes nowadays, much more as a member, less as a leader. But I'll talk about it to anybody who listens.
Oh yeah. I gotta get out. I have to get out on one of those hikes. It's been a while for me. Oh, gotta go out to adventure calls, as they say.
Okay, well,
all right,
awesome.
All right, cool.
That's it.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye. That's it for today, folks.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
And as always, please support this work by subscribing and donating to our cause at www.teamgetoveryit.com.
Donors get access to specific content like stickers, t-shirts, and postcards from our journey.
You can donate for as little as $5, and the benefits build from there.
Go to our website for more information.
Or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Team Get Over It.
Thanks for listening.
And catch us next time on Get Over It.